Hi everyone, my name is David Kelly. I'm the Program Director for the eLearning Guild, and I want to welcome you to another Twist Conversation. Today I'm pleased to welcome Sarah Gilbert, who is going to be talking to us about how Adobe Captivate can be used for mobile learning. Welcome, Sarah.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Please take a moment and introduce yourself to the people watching the video.
So I'm Sarah Gilbert, and hopefully some of you have had a chance to maybe be in some of my sessions in the past. So if so, it's good to virtually see you again. I am actually proud to let everyone know in the world now that I am officially the director at the Public Health Informatics Institute now. So formerly, and actually still the president owner of Me Learning Solutions, but I have taken on a new, very exciting role in the field of informatics, which is definitely worth looking into. It was a good alignment for my learning technology skills, so I'm very excited about it.
And congratulations on the new role. So one of the reasons that you're known within the industry is your expertise using Adobe Captivate to develop learning solutions.
Yes.
And you're going to be doing a workshop at MLearnCon this June in San Diego talking about how to use that tool for developing mobile learning solutions.
Mhm.
Now, most people are using Captivate to develop desktop learning. So what's different to use this tool, or any rapid development tool for that matter? What are the things you need to think about as a designer when you start taking that tool and applying it in a mobile context?
That's a really great question because recently I've actually focused a lot on design principles for mobile, because what I found was that there's obviously been a lot of focus on development in the industry. There are all these tools and everyone wants to know what's the best tool to use for mobile, what are some of the things that it can do, and sometimes, well, often it seems that we miss the point. So first you have to start out in that design phase and try to figure out what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And some of the questions, that I'll ask people when they ask me about their project is, what is it that you are, what's your goal, what's your learning goal, what's your learning objective, and then also where are your people when they need this? So is this for people that are sitting at their desk, or is this for people that are out in the field, so to speak, maybe salespeople, or maybe they are people that are in a warehouse, people that typically we traditionally didn't serve in classroom training because they were gone, and it's hard to accommodate them in person and work with their schedules and those types of things. So now we have this whole new opportunity to serve that audience, but you have to think about what is it that they really need, and where are they when they need it, and what type of device do they have when they're, wherever they are and need that information. And so I've spent a lot of time working with folks on just basic design sessions. How do you create a wireframe, or how do you organize your content in such a way that it's conducive to a mobile format, or what types of affordances do mobile devices provide for you? Is there something that's about something that's part of that device that gives you an additional perspective or additional context in that scenario? Looking at things like GPS, or looking at even something as simple as an accelerometer, and using those types of things to really create a richer experience for your learner. So I think that from looking at design of mobile projects, when we talk about rapid development tools, it's traditionally always been very limiting in what we can do for mobile. And in the last couple of years, a lot of the tool vendors have come out with an output to HTML5, which is great, but there are a lot of design considerations you have to think about. It's not just about publishing something out to HTML5 and making it work on a device. It's not, taking all your old e-learning and converting it from a mobile device. Mobile learning is a far broader scope than that. And what I think has happened recently is that I think the tool vendors are starting to realize that, and they're starting to accommodate the audience a lot better. So it's beyond just, I know you can't program, what is the tool that you can use? Now it's, what are the types of things that you need or features that you need, and how can we accommodate that? So, in the past where we've designed a project and said, just think of best case scenario, what would you do? Now we're starting to see tools where you can actually do some of those things, and it's not quite as limiting and restricting.
And I notice a lot of the people who criticize mobile learning as a concept do so because it tends to be e-learning on a mobile device. It's the
Yes.
thing. It's what we expect from e-learning, just accessible on a mobile, and that's not what m-learning is. I do mention the unique affordances of what these devices can do and taking advantage of them. And while a lot of just as you mentioned, a lot of the tools can output to something that a phone can read, it's not really, they historically haven't taken advantage of what these devices can do. And I know before we started the recording, one of the things that you were mentioning, we're very excited about, just the timing of this conversation being very well, the new release of Adobe Captivate version 8 just came out today, which has a lot of functionality that addresses that gap. So can you tell me a little bit about version 8 now that it's publicly available for release? What's exciting about version 8 as it applies to mobile?
Absolutely. So when we talk about mobile, mobile is not just one thing. And I know you mentioned e-learning on a mobile device, and there is a time and place for that, but it's only one tiny, tiny piece of the mobile scope, right? So you also have interactive ebooks, and you have video, and you have audio or podcast. I mean, there are so many different opportunities that you have for mobile devices. But what's happened now is if you get into looking at applications, learning on a mobile device just means that, what are all the things that device gives you access to when you're in a moment of need? So if I need access to something based on a location, I have a built-in GPS in my device. So those are the types of things that we've been wanting. It's kind of like there's a gap there of being able to your point, use some of those affordances. So with Captivate, the new version with Captivate that came out today, they've begun to address some of these things. So one of the things that is hands down should be in every rapid tool is the responsive projects. And what that means is that I can set up my project, and I can have my screen size for your portrait, your smartphone, and then you can have your tablet, and you can have your regular desktop. So what it does is responsive doesn't mean that you just squish down the website down to a small size. That's called scaling. What responsive does is it lets you set breakpoints for each of those, and then design, okay, here's what I want the project to look like when it's in this format. Here's what I want it to look like in this format, and here's what I want it to look like in that format. And so Captivate 8 allows you to set that up on one stage and just adjust the breakpoints for each different publishing output. So you're really doing the work one time, just reformatting it for each breakpoint. So that's one thing that it hands down had to be in this version. So I'm very excited about that. Another thing that's in 8 is actually geolocation support. So what that does is allows you to tap into the GPS. And I'll give you an example of a project for this, because this is something that I want to do in 8 now that it's released today. There's a sales project that I had created, and it was just an application for a sales team. And when they were out on site, they needed access to information, specific information to a specific customer. And what geolocation can do is, whenever you set up that project, you can actually set it up to where it will show you specific information based on where you are. So I can say, I can open that app, and just based on the fact that I am at that customer's address, it can pop up their customer information. So that way I don't have to go out and say, okay, let me find client XYZ and look up their profile and all those sorts of things. I can actually have it just pop up for me on the app and not even have to go to, an extra tab. And that's a huge benefit of mobile, because one of the things that we want to provide for people in a mobile environment is they need access to information. They need it right then. We don't want them to have to go dig for it. So those are some of the things that you have. If you can tap into some of those device affordances, you can do projects like that will deliver certain content based on where you are, or not show certain content based on where you are. So it just allows them to have a much better seamless experience. And then there, of course, in this one, also they have gestures now. And that's something that we needed, pinching and zooming and swiping and those types of things. I mean, some of these things are things that if you're going to say as a vendor, we are offering this, and this is a mobile tool, a tool that you can use to create mobile content, these are things that you just have to have, that you should have, because now that your users are used to these devices, they're used to being able to do those things, right? So now having a tool that will allow us to do that is important. And I mean, there are other tools on the market that are doing pieces of this. I think that this release of Captivate is very exciting because it shows that we're moving in the right direction to get some of these done, some of these things done, and be able to, without learning code and without knowing a lot about programming languages, you can have just a very basic understanding and still create very rich projects with rapid development tools now. So I'm very glad to see that this is coming along. And for those of us that are developers, it allows us to build some of these things a little bit easier than it may have been in other circumstances to build some of these more basic projects, but with some more robust features.
So you've given a lot of examples of what it can do, and you've kind of painted in many ways what the world of mobile looks like in terms of how people are interacting with their devices. And I can see a lot of people, the average instructional designer who uses a tool to develop desktop-based e-learning, listening to that and thinking, that's different. That's very different than what I do. I use the phrase a couple of times on some of the other recordings that I've done where it's a different world in mobile. And it might be intimidating for someone who's coming from a desktop environment to suddenly have to operate in this new environment where there's all these different screens and all these, even the idea of a gesture is different than, okay, well, I'm going to click on this object. It's a totally different environment. What sort of examples, you gave the great one about the supermarket, are there any other types of examples that you can share that can give people an idea of the possibilities that are opened up by this functionality?
Yes, so one of the things that is really important in my experience is that whenever you have a user that is on a desktop, they expect to have a landscape type experience. And when I have a user that's on a smartphone, I expect to have a portrait type experience, and I expect to have things that are, obvious. I should know that this is a button or that this is a menu and those types of things. But a menu on a desktop looks different than a menu on a smartphone. And so what having breakpoints, for example, having a responsive project allows you to do as a designer is design for things that you know. So absolutely, coming in as a designer that's always designed for e-learning, it is very intimidating. It's intimidating to know, what size font do I use? How should I structure things? How should things be set up? And what this tool allows you to do now is be able to look at apps on your phone or look at websites on multiple devices that you may already visit on a regular basis, like your bank, for example. And you can look at it on a desktop as opposed to on a device, and you can start to see some of those differences and design for those differently. Now, what I will recommend is that if you are looking to get into the mobile space, and to see what types of things would really lend itself to a mobile format, there are a couple of different things that you'd want to do. You would really want to look into skilling up on design, because there is a huge, world or universe of user interface design that is so critical to understand if you're changing from e-learning to mobile, and just in general. In my opinion, I think we can all really look at some of the things that we design now, and there are little things that we can change to adjust that for how people are used to interacting with technology. But looking at design principles, and then also looking at good development principles. You really have to take some training to understand what that looks like for you and what type of solutions you have, and you need to be able to see examples. Sometimes when you go to a conference or when you go to a training, people will tell you these are all the things you need to do. But sometimes they don't show you what that looks like. What are some practical examples of that? And I explained the sales application, but how can you go out and access some different examples of how people are using that? And I think that there are a lot of organizations that are starting some of those sites, but really going to a good training session or a workshop that gives you access to resources like that is a good option if you're trying to build some of those skills, because it really is, the scope of it is so large, it's kind of hard to say in a small segment or in a job aid, but going through that process of actually designing and developing a project, and then being in a workshop with someone who can give you resources that point you to some additional information for those resources that will help you along the way and show you those types of projects, I think is a good way to make that connection for your content.
And it's a great segue because I wanted to close by reminding people that you do have a workshop coming out. The title of your workshop, it's a Bring Your Own Laptop Workshop.
Mhm.
Develop an advanced mobile project in Adobe Captivate.
Yeah.
And if you're using Captivate and you're interested in mobile, you really want to consider adding this to your MLearnCon agenda. I would assume that what people are going to be covering in this workshop changed this morning with the announcement of Adobe Captivate 8. So
Yes.
the definition of what advanced is changed this morning. So can you give me an idea of, if I'm an attendee of your workshop, what can I expect out of the workshop?
Absolutely. So, in coming into this workshop, you'll notice in the project description that's out on MLearnCon's site right now is showing, you'll learn creative ways to use Captivate, best practices, using advanced actions in mobile-friendly projects. So, obviously, we're going to create a project, and we're going to create that project starting from design all the way through development. And we'll set it up to where it'll be a responsive project. And luckily, I have been on the beta for Captivate 8, so it's going to allow us really to get an in-depth look at how you can use Captivate 8 and tap into geolocation, how you can create a responsive project, and actually have a really advanced project. So you're going to come back with even more than what you would have had before in 7. Now, at this point, it's going to be really building almost a mobile application. And I would encourage people, if you sign up for the session, bring your ideas. What types of projects are you currently working on that may lend itself to this format? And if you're not sure, we'll talk about that when we get there. But we'll be taking something through to prototype, so that way when you come back to work, you'll have a template already set up. You'll have that structure already set up so that you can duplicate that, and all you have to do is come back and add your content, and you'll be on your road to mobile learning. So I'm very excited about the way that the release aligned with the conference, because it's going to allow people to really get a very solid mobile tool when they get back, or a mobile learning project when they come back. They're going to be able to tap into things that we wouldn't have been able to do in 7. So it's great timing, and I strongly suggest anybody that's a Captivate user, really, if you're coming to the conference and you're a Captivate user, you should really come to the session and take advantage of all the new features and how those apply in the mobile space.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh,
I can't sell it any more than you just did. That's the perfect description, and I would completely agree. If you're using Captivate and you're interested in mobile, this is definitely a workshop that you want to consider attending.
yeah.
If you want to get more information about this workshop or any of the programs and concurrent sessions that we have going on at MLearnCon, be sure to visit our website, mlearncon.com. Sarah, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time on Twist Conversations. Have a great day.